Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature, Conserving Brazil's Endangered Giant Otters, presented by NatHab Expedition Leader Helder, and today he is joined by a very special guest. Thank you both so much for being here today. Helder, over to you.
Hi, Kendall. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Kendall, for doing this. I appreciate your work. Welcome, everybody. From cold Brazil, actually. Today, we're facing a quite cold, quite unusual for us. Well, in this series of webinars, what we call Brazil's conservationists, we have talked about jaguars, we have talked about hyacinth macaws, and today we'll talk about giant river otters. And we have a special guest, Caroline, which I can call you Carol, right? I would like to give you a warm welcome in this cold weather. Well, Carol is a special researcher. She's studying the giant otter since 2006, and she belongs, well, she is a coordinator of a very special group, IUCN specialist group. And she tells a lot of great things about this species. She brought here a few data about her study, and I think you're going to enjoy it. So please, Carol, if you introduce yourself and start your talk, I would like to welcome.
Thank you, Elder. Thank you for the invitation at NatHab, and thank you for being here today. It's a pleasure to talk a little bit about my work, about this wonderful species. So as Elder told you, I started to study giant otters in 2006. I'm a biologist and I did my master's degree studying giant otters. And it was very challenging but also fascinating because we had at that time many gaps of information about the species, and with my study I could help to improve this situation. And after that, I started also my PhD on giant otters too. During my PhD, I conducted the first monitoring of giant otters with telemetry during the flooding season. Because during the flooding season, we had so few information about the species because it's really difficult to monitor giant otters when everything is flooded. And it was possible to do because we put transmitters inside some giant otters, and we could then with telemetry find them in different and very difficult to reach areas. As you can see in this picture, sometimes we couldn't go by boat. We need to walk on land on some. And sometimes also we conducted some airplane monitoring to find them. But all these efforts give us a lot of information, especially about how the species behave in this landscape, what are their needs during this flooding, and also how big is their home range during this time. And because all these studies and efforts, in 2013, I became the coordinator of giant otters for the Otter Specialist Group of the IUCN. And in this position, I could also help and participate of the development of the global and also the national, the Brazilian Conservation Action Plan for this species, which was for me a pleasure, and I learned a lot about the species and how I could help to improve their conservation.
So this is one of the most important things about the project, right? To produce information for the conservation, like a conservation strategy, right?
Exactly. Because when we just study the species and we don't see how we can improve the situation. We understand how threats are declining population, but we don't know sometimes how to act. And through these conservation plans, we know what needs to be done. And in 2019, I felt that we needed to give an identity for all these studies and efforts. So I created the Giant Otter project with other specialists and other members and professionals. And with these projects now, we have many actions to improve the conservation of the species and also of the ecosystem.
Cool. And being a specialist on otters, I think a lot of people want to hear about the species that there is, right? Here in Brazil and around the world.
Yes. Just having a problem a little bit. Here. Yeah, and the giant otter belongs to the lutrine family, which means the otter family. And here, as you can see, we have 13 species of otters, and all of them share similar characteristics. As you can see, this elongated body shape, also a long tail, small ears and noses, and also a very dense fur. And most of them are semi-aquatic, but which means that they depend both from water and land. But we have one species that you might know, the sea otter here, which is just aquatic. So it's the only one that depends just of water.
Cool. And in the NAHAB trips, when we go to the Pantanal, I mean, when we talk about the animals we see, and we talk about the giant otters, it's a highlight. I mean, people want to see, want to hear about it. And so please, I think all here would like to hear a little bit about the species, right? Some features about the giant otter.
Yeah, for sure. The giant otters, as the name already tells you, is the largest otter of this family. It can measure 6 feet long, and males can also weigh about 75 pounds. And the scientific name of giant otters is Pteronura brasiliensis, and Pteronura means wing tail because of this flattened shape of the tail. And as you can see in this picture, this white mark on their throat is also a very important trait of the species. And each individual has a unique pattern, which allows us also to identify individuals in the wild and to help us. It helps us a lot to do the monitoring of populations. So giant otters are also one of the most social species of the lutrine family. And the groups are composed by a dominant couple that are the only individuals that reproduce inside the group. And the other members of the group usually are the offspring of this couple from different ages that just remain in the group for a long time. But some groups are also can also be have no relationship. Sometimes group can be composed by individuals that don't have any relationship. But this is the most common type of group, as you can see here. And when they are 2 years, or when they reach 2 years, they can usually disperse from their group because they are already mature to reproduce, and then they are ready to have their own group.
No, it's so cool. They are so social, and it's so incredible to see them in the wild. So you see a lot of behavior. for us to see in tourism is just outstanding. And they are very territorial as well, right, Carol?
Yes. And as you can see here in this picture, this is the dominant female. The way that we identify the sex of giant otters is when they are outside the land, on land. And the dominant male and also the dominant female spend a lot of time sand marking their territories. And the dominant female can be identified by their prominent nipples, as you can see here in this picture. While the dominant male is the individual that spend more time at the latrines and the sand marking sites. He also try to sand mark over the sand marking of the other members of the group. And this is a way to ensure that his sand will be over all the other members, and it is easier for intruders to identify this sand and to know that there is already a male there that is protecting that area and that group.
Nice.
And as Elder mentioned, the groups, they protect some areas along the river that we call territories. And as you can see here in this map, we have territories of 6 groups. And these territories usually are about 6 miles long. And through this territory, they defend against any intruder. So if a solitary or a group goes inside the boundary of the territory of a group, they will fight and really protect this area.
Cool.
And they also, through the territory, they build some dams. As you can see in this first picture here, there are dig inside the bank. They do really large tunnels inside the bank, where all the group use to sleep and refuge. And also they have some campsites along the banks where they spend time resting, playing, and both near the den and at campsites, we can also find latrines that have a very, very strong smell, and you can feel when you are far away from the latrine.
Yeah, the chemical signals are quite strong.
Yeah, and they are very important for the communication of the species. But they also use a very large vocal repertoire.
Oh yeah, and for everyone, I brought here some just a tool so you can hear, right, Carol? When you say to me, I'll play.
Okay. Just during my PhD, I tried to identify the sounds that giant otters use for their communication, and I could classify 15 sounds. But they use these sounds, they mix these sounds, which what turned this vocal repertoire even more complex. And I tried to classify these sounds considering the behavior and the arousal state of individuals. So we classified these first 6 sounds here as close contact sounds that usually are used in affiliative and situations. So Elder, you can please play the sound.
All right, the sound is short, but you're going to hear 2 sounds.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope you could hear it. It is a really low sound, and it's like a coo, hum, and brr sound. So they use it when they are close together and taking care of the cubs or cleaning the fur. And great, yeah. And the next category of sounds we call screams and calls. If you want to play.
Okay.
Yeah, and these sounds are louder, as you can hear, and they use these sounds when they are lost, when they are far from the group, to find the group, or even to share food, to try to share food, because giant otters usually don't share food. Then if some of the individuals are eating something, the other one goes near and try to beg and to call and to cry to have a piece of that prey.
Yeah.
And in a higher state of arousal, we will have alarm and other advertising sounds.
Should I play?
Yeah,
all
please.
Right. All right, you also will hear two sounds.
I'm not sure if you could hear, but the first sound is an alarm sound, and probably if you have already seen giant otters in the wild, you probably heard this sound. It's like a sound, very strong sound, and they put their necks outside the water when they do this sound, just to investigate what is new on their area and what is happening. And the second sound is a more aggressive sound. They use this sound in agonistic encounters.
It was fantastic to the slide you put there. The image of the otters in the top there, relaxing and close together, and low there, exactly when they are alert and doing that alarm sound. And I love, Carol, I love that that sound, because it's a great tool for us, for the guides and the boat drivers. I mean, maybe all the guides and the boat drivers should know a lot about this, because it will tell us what to do and how to respect the animal in a wild observation. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we also did this image representing what the elder just told us, because it's easy to understand how close and to react, how close we can go to the giant otters when we are observing them, just identifying what sound they are vocalizing and what is the posture they are doing. So when they put their necks outside the water, then it's time to stop and to give space, because they are a little not so comfort with our presence there.
Yeah, exactly.
And giant otters are also mainly piscivorous, what means that 99% of their diet is fish. But if they are in some situations with poor food available, they may also eat other types of prey. Like here in these pictures, you can see a giant otter eating a caiman. What is really uncommon, but it can happen, especially during the dry season, when they are isolated in lakes, in shallow lakes with low food.
Yeah, and somebody that see, for example, a giant otter eating a caiman would not maybe realize how sensitive they are, especially to the environment, like the quality of the environment, the quality of food. So that's quite important for the species.
Exactly. And all this diet, this piscivorous diet, usually puts the giant otter in conflict with humans, especially with fishermen, what is one of the threats for the species. And the giant otter is classified as endangered, and it is because until the 70s and 80s, this species was almost depleted in most of their range because of hunting for their fur.
Exactly, it's quite strong. This photo is quite strong, and I mean the otters are originally from North America, right? And then around 30 million years ago, they evolved and came to South America. They colonized around 5 million years ago, sort of. But especially the giant otter is endemic to here, right? It's endemic to South America, but they lost a lot of the territory, right?
Yeah, exactly. As you can see in this map, the giant otter is endemic from South America. The historical range was from northern Argentina to northern Venezuela. That is the darker shadow here. In the blue one is what is the current distribution of the species. So the species lost about 40% of their range, especially because of hunting and also because of habitat destruction.
And more threats?
Yeah, currently we have other threats, habitat destruction and contamination, especially because of mining, agriculture, are the main threats. And we have also some punctual threats because of human conflict. And we are also facing right now climate change effects on giant otters on some population, as I will present for you during this presentation. And the tourism, when not well managed, it can also affect negatively some populations.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is why the guides should know a lot about biology, ecology, behavior, and thank you for bringing a lot of data for us. It's quite important, so we can respect the limits in tourism, so we can see in a very safe position, right?
Yeah, great. And the giant otter project works in different fronts to improve the conservation of the species related with these threats. So we try to improve the knowledge of the species through science. We also conduct some tourism activities to improve the tourism with the species. Education and communication is a permanent activity of the project. We also try to improve the coexistence with human communities through human dimensions activities. And in some situations, we also act by doing population management.
In this management, you do a long-lasting monitoring, right, of the populations?
Yeah. The population monitoring is one of our most important activity, scientific activity, because it allows us to understand what is happening along the time with the species. And we do it by identifying each individual that we observe in the wild. And we can do it when we have these images of their trough marks, as you can see in this picture.
Yeah, actually the monitoring, actually the tourism can help the monitoring, right?
Yeah, we have had some help of many tourists and also tourism guides that help us by sharing their pictures of giant otters when they do some observations during the activities. And it has improved a lot our monitoring.
Very cool.
Oops. And we also use camera traps. As you can see here in this picture, we install camera traps near the den entrances and also at campsite and latrines. And this monitoring had also helped us a lot to identify individuals and also to understand their behavior.
Cool. And a lot of areas you worked, actually we visit, right? The NetHab trips go to the areas you studied, right?
Yeah, for sure. And here I bring to you a map of the Porto Jofre region. As you can see in this map, you have the Cuiabá River, Piquiri River, and other smaller rivers that you probably visit during your trips. And in each of these points here, we saw a giant otter. And the colors represent the groups that we have monitored. And in the last year, as you can see in this map, we monitored 7 groups in this area that are here named by their some characteristics of the location, or has the community also identified the group. And also some solitary individuals in these dark points here.
Oh, so cool. And you monitor a lot in Pantanal, but also in other areas of Brazil, right?
Yeah, as you can see in this map, we are conducting population monitoring in 4 sites. 3 are located in the Pantanal and 1 in the Cerrado range. And we have been conducting this monitoring for many years, which allowed us to identify more than 100 individuals in each site, and also to know what is the density of the population in each of the monitoring years. So we can also understand how this density is affected by fire, by drought, by other potential threats.
Cool. Yeah. Which we had a lot, right? The drought and the fire, 2019 and 20 was quite tough for us.
Yeah. And I bring to you here some results of this monitoring that we have conducted in the Negro River site. If you know this site, you may remember or that the river, the Negro River, as you can see in this picture, is here, and this river is surrounded by several lakes. And usually this is one of them. This river has one of the highest density of otters in the world. So we have almost 1 giant otter per kilometer of river. And in the last 2 years, we have seen something we are very worried about what we have seen in the last years, because as you can see here in this graph, the orange bars represent the number of cubs in each year. And in 2019 and 2020, we have almost no cubs in this population. And this blue line here in the graph represents the density of adults in the river, just in the river. So as you can see, in these 2 last years, we have an increasing of density in the river. And this is probably because all these lakes became too dry to support giant otters there. And they need to move to the river, what increase also the competition and impact negatively the reproduction rate.
A big impact, right? And also you studied the effects of fire as well, right?
Yeah, just before we move to the fires, I would like to show you a picture of what we have seen. Since I started to study giant otters in 2006, it was really hard to see dead giant otters. And in the last 2 years, we saw dead giant otters in the open field. And we have a lot of records of people telling us about dead giant otters too. And we also saw isolated giant otters living in like this in very shallow lakes and pools near the road with almost no food. So this was the situation because, especially because we didn't have the rainy season in the last 2 years. And it has also impacted how big is the prey that these groups are feeding on. When we compare the diet of groups living in burrow pits along the road in the southern Pantanal with the diet of those groups living in the river, you can see the difference of the size of these preys at this graph here. And also these groups were feeding on unusual prey like crabs and other small vertebrates.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a sensitive species, right? And a lot about the draw and the fire we had in 2019 in the south, most in the South Pantanal, and 2020, huge fire in the North Pantanal, right? I think was around 30% of the Pantanal was burned. So we had a few effects of fire we already discussed on hyacinth macaws, for example. So please tell us, what were the effects on the otters?
Yeah, as you can see in this graph, what Elder just mentioned, it shows us the fire outbreaks in this along several years, and you can see this increasing in 2020 and also 2019. We saw increasing of fire outbreaks, and it impacts a lot. It have impacted a lot the landscape and also giant otters. And this is an image of the Porto Jofre region that was one of the most impacted areas. And if we have a look at this graph here, again, the orange bar representing the number of cubs, you can see that in 2020 we have almost no cubs again. So it was because the fires occurred during August and September, and this is also the period when cubs are inside the den and they need to be moved by the adults. They can't do anything by their own. So they probably died because of the fires.
It was too tough. And besides fire, the species is sensitive to other factors as well.
Yeah. We have seen giant otters from the last year, during the last years, we have seen giant otters presenting unhealthy appearance, as you can see in these both pictures, and also some uncommon eye appearance too, what could be an effect of a disease or water contamination, but we don't know. We are now looking for more fun to go deeper to understand what is happening. In the last week, we did a survey in this area where we have seen these giant otters, and we are already reporting a declining of this population. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, now we have to act urgently to understand what is happening. And also, if what is affecting giant otters could also be affecting the local communities that live basically on fish too. So they depend also on water. So if giant otters are dying or or not living well, probably it will be affecting the human communities too.
Oh yeah, I mean, in our trips, we visit North, Pantanal, and South. I read the study of a friend, the vet called Juarez May, and he was studying the concentration of heavy metals, right, in Jaguars at North, which has a lot of mining history. And I was surprised when you showed me exactly that slide. So please tell us how is the otters are affecting at the south.
Yeah, this map here presents what Elder just told you. In the north, we have in Poconé, near Poconé city, we have a lot of mining, gold mining activities. And in the South Pantanal, we don't have these activities. So a study conducted with jaguars found a high concentration of mercury in jaguars near this gold mining site. So high that it was never found in the wild before. And in the south, we conducted a study. The team of our project conducted a study to understand, to measure the concentration of mercury on giant otters in an area that is about 280 miles from the gold mining site. And we also found a high concentration of mercury, not so high as in jaguars, but higher than is considered normal for otters.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting study. Those two are very interesting study, and to cross the information, right? And besides that, any other threats you would like to mention?
Yeah, here in this map is the Pantanal map. I just worry it isn't moving. It isn't. Yeah, the GIF is not working, but it should show you this orange spot here increasing inside the wetland. So this is it just freeze on the 1985, but it should show you how the agriculture is increasing to the wetland, inside the wetland. And all this is also inputting more sedimentation and also toxics, agrotoxic to the plain.
Exactly, yeah, and there's no spring, there's no river spring inside the Pantanal. It's just outside, and all this agriculture is affecting all the springs of all the rivers of the Pantanal. So I mean, this is one of the most important things to start to change. Otherwise, we will lose Pantanal.
Yeah. We have already some studies showing a high concentration of some metals that came from agriculture in hyacinth macaws too. Found that in the Pantanal, yeah.
Definitely, yeah. And well, but tourism can change a little bit, can contribute to change that. So we have a great concept in NatHab, right? That exactly, conservation travel. So please tell us a little bit about the otter potential for wildlife tourism.
Giant otters are very charismatic. They are diurnal, social, as you have seen. And so they have a great potential for tourism activities, for wildlife observation. And but we need to improve the knowledge about the species to turn these activities more informative and to be conducted in a better way that they are in many places now. So, and what we need to know is that the peak of tourism usually occur when giant otters have their cubs. And if you you can have in mind that rivers are very similar as highways. So when we cross a river by boat, running, or crossing lots of boats crossing a river, it can really impact the wildlife that depends on that river. And if giant otters are teaching their cubs how to swim, how to fish, and a boat can run over them and impact we have already saw a lot of impact in this way. So it is something that people sometimes don't know, and that's why we are working in this direction to explain and to inform and to train professionals to conduct a better tourism.
Exactly. And again, thank you very much to bring this up and to study that, because I'm a guide. For example, in one area, we see a lot of giant otters, and we have many guides in the area we visit, that it would be great if they could hear all things you are studying, and to give a lot of information so we can have a better behavior with giant otters.
Yeah, and since 2019, we have been conducting some activities in this direction to improve the tourism with giant otters. We first try to understand what could be the impacts of tourism for giant otters. We conduct this in Porto Jofre region. And also to understand how we could add giant otters in the safaris and the activities. And then in the last year, we did an online workshop for tourism guides, and we had almost 190 participants, what was very incredible for us. We were very happy with this. And this year, next week, we are starting our second edition of the workshop too. And as a result of the first edition, we published a guideline for good practices on giant otters observation that is free for download on our website. But right now, we just have the Portuguese version, but we are working to translate it to English, so all of you can also use it, not just for professional, but also for tourists.
Cool. I'll be there in this workshop, and also we'll try to show to the guests, the NetHab guests in the trip, the identification guide, right? You will show us right now, right?
Yeah, a product of our population monitoring are these group ID guides that we are building in areas where we are doing the monitoring. So you can use it during the observation to find out which groups you can look and identify there. We have some information of the group, how long they have been there, what is the oldest individual, and so on.
So cool, so cool. Well, we're going close to our presentation, but you have a few things to show us, very interesting things about education, right?
Yeah, we also are trying to create a certification for the professionals that are trying to help us and to think about how to conduct a better tourism with giant otters. So we are trying to create a stamp that is called Giant Otter Friend, and all the professionals that will participate of the workshops and conduct the good practices for giant otters observation, we will create a list to be published on our website to inform tourists and other people where are these professionals, how they work, and so on.
So nice.
And at the end, I would like to show this picture that was our last in-person education activity. Because of pandemic, we couldn't do it personally again, but we are still conducting at distance. So just to say to you that education is a permanent activity of the project, because we really believe that with education and communication, we are improving the coexistence of humans with giant otters, and this is the way that we believe we will improve the conservation too.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, and here I have the identification of our sponsors and partners that I would like to thank so much, because only because of their help we can do all what we have been done. We have here the Houston Zoo, that is one of our main sponsors, the Fazenda Barranco Alto, that help us a lot with the logistics, Pantera, Jaguar ID Project, Senapi, and Idea Wild, and the Instituto Federal Farroupilha, what I work for, and the IUCN Specialist Group.
Nice.
And in this slide, I just would like to present to you our website. So if you would like to know more about our activities, contact, and also how to help us, and you can find all this information there. That is giantotterproject.com. Also, if you would like to talk with me, you can send an email, and also I have here the email of the project. Feel free to write, to send. I will be very, very grateful. And just for you to know, the Giant Otter project has a Portuguese version that is our main identity, that is Projeto Ariranhas. That's because Ariranhas mean giant otter in Portuguese. So in the Instagram and Facebook, you will find Projeto Ariranhas. That I know it's a little bit hard in English, but it's the way that we can improve the communication with Brazilian too. So if you want to look at our pages there, it's great too. So thank you a lot for the opportunity to talk, and I'm really open for questions and to talk with you.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you both so much. And before we start the Q&A, I just want to remind everyone who's watching, if you have a question today, you can submit that in your control panel under the questions field. All right, earlier you said that when otters defend against any intruder, do they go after other types of mammals, or do they ever kill an intruding giant otter?
Yeah, these encounters usually occur between groups, and they are very aggressive with among them, and sometimes they can kill each other.
Are otters at risk for any mosquito-borne diseases?
We don't have this information, so we don't know. But we are supposing that disease may come from cats and dogs that are near, that are living in these human communities that are near the river. This is a potential source of disease for giant otters.
And a lot of people are curious about what giant otters think about us humans as tourists. What are the interactions like? Do they generally leave us alone?
Yeah. Yeah, it is very interesting, because some groups they behave very nice for people, so they are habituated, and they let us to go very far from them. But there are other groups that run away and don't want to see us. So it is really like a human behavior. We have people that like other people and not. So it's like it works with giant otters too.
Yeah, this is why the habituation process should be done in a very respectable way, with a lot of science knowledge. As we mentioned with jaguars, this habituation, the otters would be similar but different, of course. And yeah, the tourism can affect the population. So we need to do this very well.
Yeah, and as Elder just mentioned, there are some activities in the rivers that people that try to habituate giant otters with food. And what happens is that the tourism, when this tourism is stopped, then start the fishing period. And fishermen don't like to have giant otters near their boat, on inside the boat looking for fish. And then is when conflicts start.
So a few people have requested that you put the previous slide up so that they can see all the information you provided. Great, okay. Perfect. Someone was wondering if you were able to compare the African otter to this giant otter that you're discussing today.
Yeah, the African otter is also social. And but there are so few information about this otter, so we need to have more information. But there are already some studies comparing the African otter with giant otters because of the sociality.
Mm-hmm. Do otters mate for life?
Mate for? I don't understand.
Se eles são fiéis, o casal é fiel para a vida toda.
Yeah. The couple stays together for as long as they live, so or as long as they can protect the group. Usually, what happens is the dominant male, when he is too old, he can't protect the group anymore, and then it comes a younger male that fight with this male and takes his dominant position.
Mm-hmm. How many cubs are usually in a litter?
In average, a litter has about 4 cubs, but we have already seen litters with 6 cubs. This is the maximum number. Yeah.
Oh. And are giant otters ever prey for jaguars?
Yeah, jaguar is the main predator, is the natural predator of giant otters. But jaguars, we have already seen it in Porto Jofre and also in the Negro River. Jaguars trying to catch cubs and also adults. But the group is so strong together that they really fight and protect themselves. So it's really interesting. But we have already a record of the predation of jaguars to a solitary individual in the Amazon.
Yeah, and just to be clear, usually it can be the fight, for example, between jaguars and otters. Some reports of jaguars preying on otters, but I don't think had any reports of otters preying jaguars.
No, yeah.
And it is incredible to see that in the wild. When we are in an ad trip, I mean, it's incredible to see that interaction.
Oh yeah, I bet. Okay, another question here is about climate change and how it's impacting the area and the rivers that flow to the Pantanal and affect the otters.
Yeah, what we have seen is that climate change is affecting the rain season. What also affects the length of the dry season. So for the Pantanal, for example, it is very important to have this flooding that brings more nutrients, more food, more energy to the plain, to the lakes. And when we don't have this flooding, everything goes too all the lakes dry and get too shallow, and that's why giant otters that used to live in lakes, they need to move to rivers, because it's only the only place that where they can find food.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we are getting close to the top of the hour, so I'm going to call it there with questions. And I know Helder had mentioned our trip a few times, so I just want to invite everyone to visit our website, nathab.com. That's NATHAB.com, and you can find more information on our trip there, as well as our contact information. I invite you all to give us a call. All right, both of you, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. I'm going to hand it back over to both of you for closing comments, and we'll start with Carol.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you very much, Carol. It was a very good opportunity to us to hear about the giant otters. I cannot wait to get back to the Pantanal, which will happen in an NatHab trip in August. We have, I think, 4 or 5 trips scheduled and confirmed this year. So I cannot wait to see your giant otters again, and maybe you also in the Pantanal this year or next one. So thank you again. Thank you all for hearing, and I hope to see you soon in the next webinar. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks again, you two, and my thanks as well to everyone who tuned in today. Join us tomorrow for our next Daily Dose of Nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. And with that, I'll conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody.